She's somebody forwarded the invitation to her, so I'm not sure if she's joining us, but she can listen to the recording. Okay.
I
Yeah.
can try to check in with her, or Liz, you can try to check in with her. Is it on her schedule?
Yeah, I think Carly forwarded the appointment to her.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, she had said she wanted to attend, but I don't, now that you say that, I don't know if she knew the date and time of it. She just asked me to forward it, so maybe she has a conflict.
I think she was planning to be here. She may just have had another meeting, but we could go ahead and get started.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So good to see everyone. Brandon and I wanted to call a meeting to seek for your input. Now, this is a very important meeting. So we are on this subcommittee under academic innovation and operations. The committee is looking into effective communication with students. And when we had our last meeting, we were talking about the communication contents and emails, and this issue came up that I think it's been a long issue that we have trouble reaching out to students. Now with Canvas, now we're converting to we converted it to Canvas, and students only check their emails through Canvas while they are in sessions, in classes. And they are missing out the emails coming from the rest of the university, the emails sent outside Canvas to their Outlook. So we thought this is a more important issue that we need to resolve first. We don't have any solution yet. That's why we want to bring the technology and also Tasha from I4 that maybe we could work together on brainstorming a solution, a potential solution for this. How do we I don't know if we can combine Canvas with Outlook but our end goal is that we make sure students are getting our wonderful emails. All right, so I will just leave the floor open from now. I'm not the expert, but you guys tell me what we can do. Am I missing anything on the problem, Carly?
I can speak to what I believe. I don't know that it's a problem, but just I know what to be. We do have strong start appointments with new students as they start. And one of the things that we do cover with students is we try to explain to them the difference between their Canvas inbox and their Franklin email. And the reason we do this is because we find that, like you said, Martina, when students start into classes, they kind of forget about that Franklin email. We explain to them that administration, such as financial aid, student services, academic advising, some other faculty will communicate with them through their Franklin email, where sometimes they don't check it. And so I believe that is the problem that we're trying to solve for here, which I think I said the same thing you did, but it is a big reminder that we give to students as they start, because we know it's an issue.
Yeah, and I do think in our previous conversations, we had talked about both what, inbox is called, like the name of it being confusing, but also is there an opportunity to have something on the dashboard, so to speak, when students are in Canvas that would either be a button, maybe, how like in a hotel room, the little light on the phone might be blinking if you have messages, something that would attract their eye to say, you need to pay attention to this because we have rich and wonderful messaging strategies and lots of important things going out. And so I think we're thinking about what could we do that would make sense, be reasonable, right, in terms of workload and stuff, given the fact that we need to draw students' attention to this. I mean, Dee Dee's pointed out that you've told students about this, and I think in most of our classes, our instructors are doing the same, right? That we say, hey, you have inbox, you have email, and so on. So, we still we're thinking about what would put it in front of them, right? So that they could easily go to that resource. So I think, we're just trying to brainstorm about that.
I think the idea of adding a Outlook, maybe reimagining the global navigation, and that's the blue navigation bar that's on the left side of Canvas when anyone logs in. I think it is possible, I was just doing some quick Googling, to modify the icons and the content of the global nav, but I'm not entirely sure how to do it, and it might require someone with an advanced knowledge of JavaScript or something like that to update it. But I think it could be a good idea to maybe change Inbox to maybe something else if we could do that, and then add Outlook as an option, because right now it's hiding one step inside the global nav, inside the information button. So it could be just putting it in more at a more, prominent location could help a lot as well.
Yeah, Jessica, go. You had a comment?
I'm actually trying to be polite and like raise my hand. So I first thing to say, I do not know Canvas. So let me just put that right out there first. I came from primarily Blackboard institutions, but I reached out to my former director of online everything at Edison State because I did not remember this being a huge problem there between the LMS and sort of the regular emails. And what they were able to do through Blackboard, again, I know two completely different systems, but they were able to tie somehow those emails together, or they were able to ping them through Blackboard, reminding them to check also their school emails. And the terminology that we use, I think, is confusing. I'm being told that the LMS communications are messages, whereas our Franklin email are email. So I don't know necessarily what that structure sort of would allow for or not. I also know we're trying to keep things out of the box because updating any sort of changes to these products, I know can put a heavy lift on our IT folks. So I just want to be sensitive to that as well. What can we do that won't cost us a fortune and won't add a ton more work to our staff?
Yeah, I think maybe we can stay in the idea space right now. I mean, because we'll get to putting limits on things, but I would just prefer maybe that we not assume that we don't have something, because we could think about graduate assistants in computer science. We can think about work study students who have those skills, who are enrolled, like they're lead students who are also in faculty support. So depends on the scope, right, and what you're talking about, right? If there's I wouldn't presume to say too much about it, but sometimes if you can chunk the work and then it could be reviewed by somebody knowledgeable, there may be options, right? So maybe we can just kind of stay in that problem identification and description phase, and then ideate a little bit, because we're not solving it today, we're just thinking, right? Liz?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I do think anecdotally, I think some of the challenge, because I think there's benefits to both, right? Obviously, Franklin student email is the email of record. It's where we send all of our communications. Obviously, the convenience of the Canvas messaging and being able to, correspond with your classmates and instructors. I think all of those make perfect sense. I do think anecdotally, the confusion might lie between the actual Canvas inbox being called a Canvas inbox, because when I think of inbox, I think email. And I would assume a lot of our students do as well, where if it was like messaging center, notification center, something that wasn't email, that like implies email, may be part of the challenge, right? Of just when I hear email or when I hear inbox, I think email. Do our students think that too? Because I know from conversations with Dee Dee and others, students will say, well, I'm checking my Canvas inbox, looking for the email, thinking that the email is there when it's obviously, in their Franklin student Outlook. So I wonder if that's maybe part of just the challenge, as well as just the naming and kind of referencing to what we do for inbox and within Canvas, and then Outlook for actual emails. So just a thought.
Another thing I just thought of, actually hearing Dr. Chambers talk about it, and we had a similar problem back when we had Blue Quill, which is, I don't know that we have maybe like standard talking points of how we refer to these different items. And so if students are hearing academic advisors call it one thing and say it does one thing, and then your instructor is saying, well, this is what you do with it. We could be causing additional confusion for them just based on the way we're talking about it. So that's another thing we can look at it is communication wise. Are we all referring to it as the same thing? Do we have the basic definitions? Yeah, we can definitely look, and that's an easy fix across the board.
I'm curious how you know that this is more of a problem now than in years past since we onboarded Canvas. Have we seen a waning read receipt, Carly? Are we seeing like a lack of responses from students of things we sent to Outlook?
Yeah, I think this has been a problem for academic advising since this was implemented.
Okay.
I think, and Dee Dee, maybe you have more history on this. I think it's been sort of run up the flagpole before, and people have said, well, this is what Canvas calls it, and we can't do anything about it, so sorry. So I think we've been sort of taking action items on our end of like talking about it in the Strong Start, different communications, introducing it. The new perspective I'm getting, which is interesting, is, and then in talking with instructors and getting into this communication team, they have concerns of like, well, I'm communicating to them through Canvas and they're not seeing it because they're in their Outlook. And it's like, oh, students are just confused all the way around maybe about how to use these two tools.
I knew it because I sent students scholarship information in the majors in specific programs, have the opportunity to talk to some students, and a couple of them said, I didn't get your email. And then they check their Outlook and realize that it's sitting in their Outlook inbox, but they only check their Canvas emails. So that's how I found out through my students, a couple cases.
Yeah, Matt, it's also had a negative impact in cases where we're trying to work through the process we have in place for academic integrity. So that's particularly tricky because it's time sensitive. They are supposed to have a good faith discussion in a specific period of time, and they could potentially be charged. So there's, I've had that experience as well as what Martina is describing, where there was some general information, oh, I didn't know about this event, I didn't know about this opportunity, and that kind of thing has happened. But so there's some, time sensitive deadlines for, I'm sure for financial aid, but also for academic integrity. And we have had an uptick in academic integrity activity, with different kinds of results, but in some of the populations that we're serving now, and we're talking hundreds of students in those populations. I'm not saying that it's a large percentage of that population that is involved in that process. I am saying even a small percentage of that population, it's still a big uptick in traffic. Understood.
Well, I think the good faith discussion ones are probably personal choice, right? That's different. Bad joke.
I wanted to, no, it was a good joke, Matt. It was funny. I laughed. I wanted to ask Trent, Trent, you alluded to the fact that, is there a link on the global navigation tool in Canvas that takes a student to their Franklin email?
No, there's no button, but if you click the information button, which is on there, it's the second or third one, I think. Maybe it's further down, but.
So it's kind of buried a little bit. I loved Brenda's idea about how, back in the olden days when you were in a hotel, you get the flashing light. If there's any way that we could get that to like the global navigation bar to indicate that there are emails in the student email, I love that idea, because that would be a visual for the students to see that would remind them to go dig for the Franklin email address, or if there's any way that we could pop up that email address a little higher. I think that's great. So I don't know where we're trying to get now. We're still trying to identify if there is a problem. In my humble opinion, which is very humble, I think there is a problem. A lot of people have indicated that here today. So I don't know at what point we want to start talking about brainstorming possible solutions.
Yeah, Dee Dee, that is Martina and my purpose. I mean, so this was a problem that was identified by our committee, which is the Strategic Communication Committee associated with AIO. And so that committee is obviously collaboration with staff and faculty working together to try to figure out how we can improve our communication, right? And so this came up, and also Sarah Lathrop had also indicated in a variety of her roles, she had also observed, these issues. And so at least there's a, significant contingent, and through our committee that has the scope of improving communication. We are indeed, that's our purpose today, is to start this brainstorming. And then hopefully our action items will be investigating some promising leads and coming back and to say, okay, what's feasible? Because those are different things, right? We're going to ideate about what's some solutions, like Trent, you mentioned reimagining the blue navigation bar, the global navigation. And so maybe if we think more holistically about if we are all on the same page, once we figure out what kind of thing we would like, maybe we can lend our support to the individuals, who might be involved with the solutioning, right? Whether that's helping with communication about it or whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying? So just how can we collaborate? That's going to be a way to move this forward is my desire, not to leave it, or put it on someone per se, but rather to generate solutions. And then what could we potentially do to support the individuals in the best position to implement that desired solution?
Trent, are you aware of any forwarding features in Canvas Inbox that would push everything over to
No.
Outlook to try and encourage a single hub?
No, I don't know of anything because I wasn't involved in the conversations when setting up the global nav when we made the switch. But we do have, those dedicated Canvas folks, reps from Instructure who probably could get on a call with us and talk through some of those things. I'm pasting something in the chat too that's completely not related to that, but it's a assignment from our PF 321 course called Using Canvas Inbox that could be reimagined or updated to maybe stress the importance of Outlook as well. This sort of, it says you should primarily use Canvas Inbox. Maybe we want to rethink that. That's a very easy change we could do.
I was thinking, what if I am a student who take a turn off? So I don't look at my Canvas this semester.
Well, I think access to
And
Canvas is retained for a year, right? I think they stay on DD's active rosters for a period of 366 days from the end of a term or something close to that, right, DD? So we wouldn't block them from Canvas, and they would retain access to their Outlook inbox at the same period.
Right.
So a term off doesn't affect.
If I'm not taking a class, I probably wouldn't look at my Canvas. And if we go through Canvas for all the communication, does that mean I don't get any emails then? Or I still go to my Outlook? I'm saying that what if we add that function as Trent suggested? I get the alert, but I don't look at Canvas in the first place this semester. Then adding that function doesn't work for me then, right?
I think Trent was saying the flip-flop. Instead of it all living in Canvas, it would all just forward to Outlook. Right?
Automatically forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the options are. I wasn't sure if we add, if we could somehow rename, I know Canvas is called Inbox. That's what their feature is called. I don't know if that's editable. If it is, that maybe as an option, or if we could add a button called Outlook and then that has like a little notification through the magic of IT that I'm really not qualified to say if it's true or not because I have no idea. But if you could somehow get it to where it would know your Outlook inbox number, like if you have 10 unread emails, it will say 10. So students could still access Outlook normally and they see those 10 emails, but in Canvas, it's just a way to alert them that, hey, I have 10 emails in Outlook waiting for me to read. Is sort of what I was kind of noodling on.
I think what Trent also brought up in the chat here is interesting. Do we know if the university would does want students to primarily use the Canvas inbox for communicating with instructors and classmates. Was that decision made? I'm assuming yes, and since it's in here, but that's the first time I had seen that implementation trend. Thank you.
Yeah, I think from a documentation standpoint, Dee Dee, I mean, this was a while back, but it went through some Senate conversations anyway about, and there was some enthusiasm, you know, at least from a technology standpoint, about capturing some of the discussions that were rather ephemeral, if you will, that lived only in an instructor's inbox and that sort of thing. So I think there was some desire to have a way, you know, to maybe, you know, have some record that connected back to a class. But, you know, we're still now, there's so many other communications obviously going to students. We're trying to determine how to make sure that they're getting those as well. Mm-hmm. Dan, you've been really quiet. Do you have any thoughts about this? I know you have a really deep understanding of all of our systems and architecture. Any thoughts about some of the things, you know, Trent's mentioned?
So I was trying to remember. I am not a Canvas expert. Our on-prem stuff, I definitely have some deep knowledge about. But I was trying to remember the initial implementation, and I think what I'm hearing about is kind of like what Trent said. We're probably at this point putting together a list of things to ask Instructure about in terms of what functionalities and limitations we might have on the table. I do know that it was not possible to truly integrate the inboxes. I remember that from the initial implementation. I don't recall what the forwarding options were. And I also do recall there was a desire to keep things within Canvas so that there were everything, you know, so that it was centralized, at least as far as course communications go. Now, of course, that's a big gap for all the other kinds of communications we're talking about. So I think, you know, if there's UI things to be done to highlight the fact that there's another communication channel that they need to be paying attention to, obviously that would be effective. I don't have any, I wish I had an idea that was just kind of like, oh yeah, we could do X, but I don't. I think we're going to have to dig on the Instructure side and really figure out what the platform's capable of. I do know we knew from the beginning it was going to be confusing that they were both called inbox. It was one of the first things that we were just kind of like, well, that's unfortunate.
So Trent and I have a way to get in touch with our friends at Instructure. Those are the team of account reps that triage our requests, direct them to the right personnel, and then hit respond at some point. They're usually pretty quick. We'll call it a week or so. Sometimes quicker if it's high priority. I don't know if they'll judge this as that, but we can figure that out. So if we do draft a list of, hey, are these things possible? What do you advise other schools? We can be your senders for that. Happy to interface with them and then share the info with the whole team. But I think we kind of need to draft what those items specifically are that we want to ask about. I like what Trent said earlier too. Like we don't know if they've come leaps and bounds since the initial implementation. If we were under that understanding then and said, well, like Dan said, crap, that's unfortunate. We didn't know they're both going to be dubbed the same brand name. Where are they now, though? We can't be the only school facing this obstacle of saying, how do we merge? How do we shift? How do we improve? How do we better leverage? It feels like a pivot moment to seek, you know, professional services for.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Trent gave us, you know, at least a partial list, if not a complete list. I mean, Trent, just sort of quoting you were talking about the possibility of renaming Inbox, of the forwarding to Outlook, also the alerting, you know, sort of, is there some sort of way to visually draw their attention? Hey, you have 10, you know, or 100 emails in Outlook. You know, I know we're also on the cusp of things evolving in terms of AI integration in systems, including Outlook, right? Probably in Microsoft products. And so there may be, several assets or functionality that we want to be able to leverage there. So I think now is a great time to be looking at this, right?
So maybe Brenda, you and I, we could summarize what we discussed, create a draft for everyone to take a look at and take it forward.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to summarize this meeting, share that with everybody. You all can make any corrections and firm up those action items, which would include Martina and I bringing back, some very summary, brief comments about this discussion and kind of how we're moving forward with it.
Okay. And as we discussed, it just brought back my memory. When we first launched Canvas, I received all these emails from Canvas. So every single email that was sent through every class, every section that I am the lead faculty for will come to my Outlook. And what did I do? So I changed some of the function in Outlook so that I don't receive them or I dragged it into somewhere. Yeah, so
Yeah, notifications. We have control over that.
notifications, right? Okay, yeah. So they are automatically forwarded to our Outlook then.
Unless you
That's-
change those settings. Yeah.
That's the default. Okay. And
Is the
then
is the content of the Canvas inbox message actually sent, or do you get a message saying you got a Canvas inbox message?
oh, it's the second one. It's the
Yeah,
letter.
well,
Yeah,
I think
it's the
I
letter.
think I recall you
Right,
could have notifications, but you still had to go to the Canvas inbox to read the message.
Right, you were right. Yeah, you were right. Yeah, so
As
I
a
think-
as a student, so I'm in the graduate program here, and as a student, you do as a default get opted into notifications, and I'm able to see. I sent my professor a message this morning, and you're able to see the whole message in Outlook. So that is actually probably a reason why students aren't using it as much, because they feel, I feel like probably 80% of my emails to my student account are just messages about new announcements in Canvas, new inbox messages in Canvas, if something's graded in Canvas. So stuff's probably getting lost in the shuffle, maybe based on the default notifications. But I think that they're important to have. Like, we don't want to limit communications across platform, but that's something maybe to consider, like what if that's part of the reason too.
Yeah, and best practices about how to fine tune that might be helpful. Knowing that we're a different sort of institution, right? I mean, it's not that common actually to have lead faculty with hundreds of sections and, or dozens of sections anyway, with hundreds of students total, right? It's kind of an unusual model. And so maybe that's less problematic, right, for people who don't have as many. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's been some evolution since we implemented this. And so it seems like, we can summarize some of the key ideas and key points here and look into this further. I'll be happy, amongst, I'm sure, other folks, but I'll be happy to look hard at that functionality in Canvas and, and kind of be educated about that, to be able to speak to that as a faculty member, like what kind of access we have and sort of the settings and functionality that we have there. And then also maybe Martina and I can kind of informally anyway poll faculty members about their experiences with those things, right? If they have strong ideas about best ways to use those, strong thoughts about what they don't like about it. I know I personally have a separate folder in my Outlook email that's specifically for these so that I can keep track of it without it clogging up my entire inbox. So I know Don,
I have a quick question for you, Brenda and Martina. Do faculty have guidelines of what they should be using for certain situations or communications?
Not really. I mean, we're all, of course, responsible for academic quality. Sure. So I would say, the short answer would be we should know, for example, if an instructor's not been grading in a class, or, there's some other issue like that. But I think it's more up to the individual. Some faculty, Matt, I know, like to be more granular. They want very specific details, and other folks, see you, Trent. Other folks have a less detail-oriented approach. So Martina, what are your thoughts?
Matt, you mean guideline like how do you related to email issue or other types of guideline?
Not to an email issue per se, more for please use this tool to communicate the following. But if it's relevant to class or discussions or something, please use this tool to update or communicate.
Well, we have had that. I mean, again, it was when we first moved to Canvas, we had that in our training as part of this orientation, Matt. Use Inbox in Canvas for course specific announcements, to share your course meetings or updates, and all other communication through Microsoft Office, email, right? And so program chair kind of stuff, and events and speakers and all that kind of thing. So anything that was not related to a given course. And we were, again, there was this desire to have a holistic picture of what was going on in a class. And it was thought that the use of Inbox and Canvas would provide that. I say thought because it doesn't. Sure. You still have to do some detective work to figure out exactly, some of those nuances of a class. So that's been my experience. I do recall, our rollout of Canvas and the training that we had. Martina, what about you and how that landed with your group?
I don't think there is any specific guideline or if we are mandated to do one way or the other. But if it's a class, the easiest way is go through Canvas because you automatically, couple clicks, you get to the whole class, which you cannot do with Outlook. But if it's something that I need to communicate with all the students in a specific major, then I will go through BI, pull the Excel spreadsheet of the student in the major and copy paste the emails into Outlook. So it depends on who I email.
So I know we're talking exclusively about Canvas and Outlook and how they're sometimes friends and part-time friends, right? But I think you do have some instructor groups throughout the university that use Teams for a decent amount of communications. They spin up a class roster like team and they shuffle key communications there, and they kind of establish that as like how we're going to talk or collaborate or do group projects, whatever that looks like. So I don't want to limit just these two topics. I think that has some wash in this as well.
Yeah, but Matt, many of us, I mean, I included, don't have the ability to create teams.
Okay.
So you have to have the access. I had to hobble together adding a channel to a piloted thing, in fact, to have that kind of collaborative space in Teams. So I hear what you're saying. I do think that's a valuable channel to think about after we have some discussion on this. But sure. I'm just saying, I would not assume that full-time faculty necessarily have the permissions that you're talking about.
That's good to hear. Okay.
Okay, so I know some folks didn't maybe get a chance to, anybody didn't get a chance to weigh in. Don, did you have anything to?
I don't know that I have anything to add. I like the idea that you kind of put out there that we are in fact just thinking about this, right? That we're brainstorming, that these are ideas. It's a strategy that we're trying to develop around communications to try to get people to view multiple things. While we were talking, I was out just Googling around various terms, and if you look at Canvas schools, they talk about this and what the difference of email is compared to Canvas Inbox, and they have knowledge and FAQs, and they're trying to make sure that they're telling people about the two differences. Like Matt said, we'll talk to instructor. Dan and I were chatting while this was going on, and he found a feature request that someone asked for inbox to be changed to message center. And the feature request has been archived, and they said not enough people liked it, and so it's been closed. Yeah, so, like I think Matt said it, we're not the only ones going through this kind of thought process. I don't know, and I appreciate the comments. I don't know if there's going to be any technology silver bullet to fix this, right? I mean, PF 321 and how we put students into classes is going to be part of it, and communication at the beginning is going to be part of it. Whether we can put some highlights to email, that's also going to be part of it. Maybe we can talk more about FAQs and support documentation is going to be part of it, but there's not going to be a one size fits all answer to this. And I don't think Instructure really wants it to be built that way either. If I look at some of the comments we've seen in community and Instructure, so. I mean, that was good and bad at Blue Quill too, right? We, not that it was fantastic, but we could do whatever we wanted based on whatever requirements were. And now we kind of have to live by what Instructure says.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Don. And I think, we also had some great comments in this meeting about sort of multi-modal pieces here, like that there's different elements, as you said. I mean, Trent had offered the PF course as an example, and I think Carly mentioned, are we sure that we're saying the same things? So some consistency, right? How could we reinforce consistency and how we refer to those things, or our expectations about uses? And so, yeah, absolutely, we're brainstorming. We know that there's an issue, but we're trying to figure out what are possible solutions. And there's probably more than one thing, right? And who better to talk about FAQs and other stuff than a strategic communication group? So, I do think that it's a good opportunity, right, for us to actually have minds together that want to collaborate on some solutions here, knowing that it's probably not one magical thing, but we should explore maybe, what we could do to address this issue at the same time. So I want to ask anyone else. Jessica, did you have more thoughts that you wanted to share, or Martina? Just, I don't want to rush us, but I also felt like we had a really good discussion thus far, and so maybe we might be able to wrap a little early and then just share and follow up, the notes from the meeting.
No, I just appreciate that we're bringing it up with the right people at the table. I think, as many of us will know what's happening, this can lead some other conversations and just make more folks aware. We'll find something that works. I have no doubt. And I'm just looking forward to figuring out whatever that's going to be. And as a part of my role here, I'm now sort of overlooking all of the continuing student communication. So this is going to help me also in that role tremendously. So I thank you all for your thoughts and ideas. And like I said, we'll work towards a solution.
All right. Well, yeah, so if no further thoughts, thank you, everyone. So we will draft something and we'll get back together with everybody. All right. Have a good afternoon. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye all.
Yeah.
Bye.